I just want to take a moment to speak about what happens when terrible events unfold on the global collective scale. And we can look at that and sometimes hate humanity and think, what's wrong with humanity? And we need to remember that what we are seeing is not humanity. What we are seeing is a mass scale projection of unresolved wounds and projected evil, projected trauma, qualities of oppression, qualities of violence, of rage, of hatred, of judgment and scapegoating, terror. All of these things are unresolved, undigested wounding that has been carrying on for generations over long periods of time throughout various societies within our one human family. This is why inner work is so important, and there are some who don't make this connection and think that the inner has nothing to do with the outer, but the mystery traditions throughout thousands of years and multiple cultural and spiritual traditions tell us otherwise, whether it's the Hermetic tradition saying, as above, so below, as within, so without. These principles of understanding are there. In the Buddhist tradition, there is the notion that dualistic vision of inner and outer as being separate is a mass delusion. It's actually just not an accurate reflection of reality, even though it's very compelling to feel that way and it looks that way from a certain kind of limited perspective. But it's not the deeper truth. It's just that limited perception. So the importance of doing the inner work is that when you look at a big, let's say, a clump of negative energy that's playing out in certain spheres of human experience, certain parts of the world, for example, there are many things that we can do to respond to this, but fighting fire with fire, finding someone to blame and so on and so forth is of very limited value and can sometimes actually make things more inflamed. It's like we burn down the house rather than actually heal it. So rather than feeling helpless or terrified, you can have a look and say, well, we are all connected. I am part of this human family, even though this thing may appear to be happening on the other side of the world. If you, for example, if you are sensitive, you will feel the disturbance in the collective energies. And in this day of media openness, the things that used to perhaps be able to be swept under the carpet or put to one side can feel like they're much closer to home. So that has, potentially positive aspects if we can utilize that to generate compassion and wisdom. So the compassion is caring enough to want to do something. And the wisdom is understanding, okay, well, how can I do something that's of benefit? So let's go back for a moment to this clump of negative projected energy that gets dumped on a certain group of people or a certain nation or a certain political group or a racial group or an ethnic group and so on and so forth. So no matter what the external appearance of who's being targeted, the underlying quality is something that you will be able to relate to in your own life, in your own humanity, in your own journey, perhaps in your own community on a different scale, because that quality is a unifying human struggle. So it might be the quality of hatred, it might be the quality of judgment, it might be the quality of unresolved anger, it might be the quality of fear, it might be the quality of needing to find someone to blame in order to alleviate the tension you feel about certain things in your life not unfolding in the way that you want. We can probably all relate to different times in our life journey where we've felt this, we've had this experience. So one of the most powerful things you can do is begin to look for what it is that you see happening in the world and say, where is it that essential quality, that thing that I'm perceiving, that reaction that I'm having, where can I begin to make my own projection of that, wherever it is in the world, upon whomever? Where can I make that more conscious? Where can I begin to pull that projection back? And through that process, and it's a painful process, that's how you know you're actually doing the work, because it's not comfortable to do. But as you're doing it, you'll be saying to yourself, okay, where can I take responsibility for this? This is not about giving permission for other people to behave badly. This is not about spiritual bypassing or denying the troubles that we see unfolding as a result of people's pain. It is a wise response saying, how can I de-escalate? How can I start to remove some of the psychic, emotional, physical, psychological inflammation here? How can I contribute positively by no longer fueling that particular fire? Where can I find more consciousness, and through that consciousness, more peace, more self-awareness? Stop creating, perpetuating the patterns that at a deeper level are actually fueling this in the human collective, and therefore having negative impact on Mother Nature, on other humans, and setting up a kind of negative domino effect. So we begin to say, okay, where do I pull back that thread? And you can think of it like this. Imagine it's a huge knot. When you look at it, you think, oh my gosh, that knot's enormous. What can I do? You can feel helpless and overwhelmed. How can one human make a difference with that situation? Especially if you're sitting in your lounge room trying to meditate or write in your journal or do dance or a healing process and trying to become more conscious and more responsible in your life for the energy that you're putting out into the world. That can feel so removed at that dualistic vision level from what's happening in another part of the planet where there's devastating violence occurring, for example. And yet, if we think about it as this great big knot, and you're pulling out one thread, and I'm pulling out one thread, and then someone else on the other side of the planet's pulling out a thread, and then another, and another, and the more that we pull out those threads, the more that others will begin to see, hey, actually I can pull out my thread as well. It's like that density of the knot that obscures the light of truth starts to break down, and the little light, like shards of sunlight coming through thick cloud that starts to part, is enough that then others who perhaps don't have the fullest understanding that someone else might have that's already started the process can say, oh no, I get what this is about, and they can start. And then instead of a negative domino effect, what you have is this beautiful, conscious, loving, compassionate dismantling process based on wisdom and responsibility and courage, and you begin to recognize that's humanity. The courage, the wisdom, the willingness, the fact that we're in this together, that's the goodness, that's the heroic quality of the heart. And the wounding is not humanity, it's not what we're about, but it is ours to clean up. And we can do it, and we are doing it. And it's not about trying to control another person. Even if your ideal, you think that your vision of the world or what others should or shouldn't be doing is so progressive and would ultimately help everyone, and even if you have that, I've got to say, maybe brave delusion that you can run the world, I can't think of anything more terrifying, but anyway, just imagine that you thought you could do it well. Even then, to attempt to control another is still coming from that dualistic outside. It's just another projection. It doesn't actually resolve the underlying issue. It's like having a more holistic vision is the spiritual vision. I hope this gives you a sense of empowerment. I hope this gives you a sense of why we're doing this work that we're doing and why we need each other, and why, as long as the method feels effective and true and empowering for the heart, and it has a good effect on your energy, your mind, your spirit, your body, as long as you are doing work that has that effect for you, the actual method itself is not so important. What is important is that we each work to our capacity, we each nourish and support and uplift each other in our process, and we keep pulling back those projections of judgment, fear, hate, aversion, doubt, etc., and do the inner work and healing. So much love and so much gratitude from my heart to yours. Namaste, beloved.